Welcome back. Is Iran the next shoe to drop? President Rouhani now threatening to pull out of the nuclear deal if the U.S. imposes any new sanctions. To former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs, Ambassador Lincoln Bloomfield, on what to make of this warning. Good to see you, sir. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Maria.
What do you think?
Well, the Iranians are obviously trying to use the agreement, the nuclear agreement, almost as a hostage to prevent any pushback from the United States or other countries against the aggression that they are conducting in Iraq and Syria and Yemen and elsewhere in the Gulf, and their internal repression. What's been so disappointing about the debate in America since the JCPOA was actually agreed to in 2015 is how whenever someone says, hey, they're calling in Russian airstrikes on hospitals in Syria, the answer is you're trying to destroy the agreement. So you have a constituency of people from the Obama administration who take pride in the fact that this was his signature diplomatic accomplishment. You have a bunch of experts on nuclear nonproliferation who have wanted restraints on countries like Iran's nuclear program for 30, 40 years. That's very legitimate. I think we need to try to find an American position that keeps us united, but that stands up for our principles. We have every right to push back against Iranian aggression and repression. Is
Rouhani trying to get ahead of President Trump? I mean, President Trump has not made any secret of the fact that he thinks the Iran deal was bad, was very bad. In fact, he campaigned on he's going to, reverse it as soon as he gets into office. So is Iran getting ahead of what we have already heard from this president?
Well, look, President Trump is playing his cards close to the vest. Obviously, he doesn't think it was a very good deal. We gave away a lot of concessions at the outset. The Iranians pocketed them. You've heard some people claim that they're violating the terms of the JCPOA. Other people say that, no, the agreement actually allows them to do the things they've been doing. At the end of the day, if you're talking about good faith, I don't think anyone could give Iran high marks on that. I think that the Rouhani administration over there is just playing us. They're playing on our fears that we're going to be isolated. There is a downside to having President Trump tear the agreement up. The Europeans would still be on board. They would still go forward with the major deals on Airbus and Total, etc. So the Iranians would get revenues from that would go to the Revolutionary Guards. And the president would have trouble convincing others to sign executive agreements. They'd want a treaty because he tore up this one. But still, he has every right to put a policy together, and we'll see this fall, that pushes back on all of their activities, including violations of the nuclear accord. And if the Iranians pull out, that's a different story. Then they're tearing it up with Europe as well.
So do we already have evidence of the Iranians going against the nuclear accord, breaking the agreement?
I'm not the nuclear expert. I've heard people say that they engaged in some procurement activities and got caught in Europe and Germany months ago, that there are some enrichment activities that are suspicious. The Iran exiled resistance has said that there are secret sites, and they're the people that found the nuclear program in the first place, as President Bush acknowledged. Then there are others who say, well, actually the agreement doesn't prohibit these things. And then I listened to the former deputy director of the IAEA up at Harvard, Olli Heinonen, who says, at a minimum, we cannot certify the peaceful intent of Iran's nuclear program until we get a closer look. And under the terms of the agreement, it's not clear that we will be allowed to have a closer look.
What should the U.S. be doing right now?
The U.S. should be putting together, should remember its principles. Iran is engaged in a lot of activities in the Middle East and at home that are objectionable. They've also been trying to, there's kind of a drumbeat inside Iran for an investigation at the UN of a major massacre in 1988 where 30,000 people were pulled out of the prisons and executed very quickly. And 3 of the people who signed off on those deals have been in Rouhani's cabinet. You've got, that's as big as Srebrenica, and you've got Milosevic and Radovich sitting in jail in The Hague, but these people are serving as Iranian ministers in this moderate government cabinet. So I think that there's a lot to be done here. There were 101 executions in July under Rouhani. There have been 3,100 since he took office, and they have about 150,000 men under arms under the Quds Force in Iraq and Syria. So
incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. Just one more thing. Our military experts warn that Iran is trying to establish a land corridor from its border all the way to the Mediterranean through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. And now we're hearing from Israeli leaders that this is a big concern of theirs. Secondly, they may be establishing a base at the southern approaches to the Red Red Sea, which gets to the Suez Canal. These are things that the United States needs to focus on, study, and do something about. It has nothing to do with the nuclear accord.
Yeah, maybe not, but these are serious issues. And what about the North Korea threat? How involved was Iran in terms of helping North Korea build up its arsenal?
Well, if anybody bothered to look at the inauguration ceremony for President Rouhani on August 3rd, they would have seen the #2 official of North Korea standing there at the ceremony, and then the 2 deputy foreign ministers opening a new North Korean embassy in Tehran, and then announcing that they're going to cooperate on ballistic missile programs in support of their enemy, against their common enemy, the United States. So what's tough about this for the president is he's fighting on a lot of fronts. He's got a very tense situation in North Korea. The Iranians are trying to make another crisis so Washington will back off and say we don't want to be fighting on 2 fronts, etc. You know, I think the Americans need to remember their principles, stand by what they believe in, oppose aggression and repression, stand for our principles. We have every right to do that, and it's not a violation of the nuclear agreement.
All right, we'll be watching the developments, Ambassador. Thanks very much for weighing in.
My pleasure, Maria.
Good to see you, sir.